7,000 years before wheat swept the continent, millions of people thrived on a food so abundant it offered more calories per acre than any grain today. Acorns gathered free from forests spanning 200 million acres. These trees fed civilizations for 30,000 years, with oaks outnumbering all other eastern trees, and California's tribes drawing 60% of their calories from acorns alone. Yet within a few generations, this system vanished. It was burned, outlawed, and erased. The answer reveals why our landscape, our health, and our food security changed forever, and it exposes the hidden forces that still shape what we are allowed to eat. Across the oak-studded landscapes of North America, entire societies built their lives around the quiet power of acorns. Archaeologists have traced this relationship back nearly 30,000 years, uncovering ancient grinding stones and storage pits layered with the remains of processed acorn meal. In California alone, more than 300 words once described different kinds of acorns, each term capturing distinctions in flavor, texture, harvest time, or how a particular variety would cook into bread, soup, or mush. This was ancient abundance and precise knowledge. For the Chumash and many neighboring peoples, acorns made up over half of every meal. This was not mere foraging, but a science passed through generations. Elders taught children how to gather, sort, and prepare, how to read the trees and the seasons. Ingenious granaries, woven from willow or carved from stone, stood raised above the ground, engineered to keep acorns cool and dry for 3 to 5 years, insurance against drought or poor harvests. These stores meant security. No one went hungry if a single season failed. Every autumn, families gathered beneath the oaks, singing harvest songs, sharing stories, and preparing the year's supply. The knowledge ran deeper than food. Creation stories honored the oak as a first ancestor, and ceremonies marked the first taste of new acorn meal each year. Language, memory, and survival all intertwined beneath the branches, an enduring partnership between people and trees. Acorn systems outperformed the annual crops that replaced them in almost every measurable way. In a good mast year, a mature oak woodland could yield thousands of pounds of acorns per acre, rivaling or surpassing the caloric output of the best wheat or corn fields. Unlike wheat, which must be planted, fertilized, and irrigated every season, oaks require no plowing, no chemicals, and no artificial watering once established. One healthy tree could drop up to 1,000 pounds of acorns in a single year and keep producing for centuries. The calories packed into acorn flour, about 2,000 calories per pound, meant that a single harvest could feed families for months. Acorns offered a nutritional profile that went beyond simple starch. They contained around 6% protein, over 60% carbohydrates, and nearly a quarter in healthy fats. They delivered essential minerals like potassium and calcium, plus B vitamins and resistant starches that support gut health. But the real secret to their endurance was underground. Oak roots can reach deep, many meters below the surface, tapping moisture reserves that shallow-rooted crops cannot access. This makes them nearly immune to drought, able to survive heat waves above 110 degrees Fahrenheit without irrigation. Where annual crops wither in the dry season, oaks keep drawing water, keep producing, and keep feeding whoever knows how to gather. For thousands of years, these trees turned sunlight, rain, and poor soil into a steady supply of calories. No plows, no pumps, no fossil fuel required. The numbers tell a story: more food per acre, less work, and a resilience that modern agriculture still struggles to match. Spanish missionaries arriving in California found a world where acorns fed entire nations, and to them, these foods were symbols of the old order they were sent to erase. Mission records describe acorn mush as the daily bread of native people, so central that Spanish chroniclers called it pan. Almost immediately, mission authorities redirected indigenous labor away from the oaks and into wheat fields. On lands that once echoed with the sound of grinding stones and harvest songs, rows of European grain replaced woodland. Wheat, barley, and livestock became the new staples, imposed through rations and strict schedules. Leaving the mission to gather acorns or tend fires was punished, and traditional burning essential for maintaining oak groves was banned or tightly controlled. In some areas, oaks were felled or burned outright to clear space for crops and pastures. It was a calculated move to cut off the old food supply and force dependence on mission stores. The strategy was simple: control the food, control the people. Within a generation, centuries of acorn knowledge began to unravel under the weight of forced labor and enforced hunger. In the decades after the missions, the assault on oak landscapes took on industrial scale and precision. The Homestead Act of 1862 made land ownership conditional on the idea of improvement, which meant clearing trees, plowing fields, and fencing what had once been open woodland. For settlers, proof of progress was measured in stumps and furrows. The advance of industrial agriculture turned living forests into cleared property. Railroads carved their way west, consuming millions of hardwood ties. Oak was prized for its strength and durability, and entire stands vanished along new routes. In California, the gold rush fueled hydraulic mining that stripped hillsides bare, with valley oaks felled for timbers, sluices, and endless cordwood. By the late 1800s, state surveys warned that most valley oak woodlands had already been cleared for wheat and grazing. When the U.S. Forest Service was established in 1905, its mission prioritized fire suppression above all else. Burning, once the tool that kept oak groves thriving, became a crime. The launch of the Smokey Bear campaign in 1944 cemented the message. Every fire was an enemy, and those who set them faced arrest. Federal budgets for suppression soared, while the quiet science of cultural burning was pushed underground. The machinery of law, industry, and propaganda worked in concert, turning living food forests into fields, railbeds, and silent, aging remnants. The result was deliberate erasure of a working landscape and the loss of food systems built over generations. Annual agriculture became the backbone of a new economic order. Each spring, fields demanded fresh seed, fertilizer, and fuel, and those inputs were sold by companies that profited most when farmers had to buy again every year. Federal subsidies poured into wheat and corn, rewarding cleared land and annual harvests. Perennial systems like oaks, which needed no replanting or irrigation and produced food for centuries, offered no such recurring revenue. The market could not price what fell freely from the trees. For indigenous communities, the cost was measured in more than lost calories. As acorn-based diets vanished, so did the health they supported. Diabetes rates among California Native Americans are now 2 to 3 times higher than the national average, a direct legacy of forced dietary change and processed foods. The loss ran deeper still. With each grove cleared, hundreds of words for acorn types and preparation faded from everyday speech. Languages that once carried the science of oak tending and food making now struggle to survive, with many spoken fluently by only a handful of elders. The erasure of perennial abundance was not just ecological or economic. It tore at the roots of culture, memory, and health, leaving scars that persist today. Restoration is no longer just a hope, it is happening on the ground. In 1992, California Indian basket weavers formed an association to protect and revive traditional land stewardship, sparking a wider movement. Across the state, elders like Julia Parker have spent decades teaching acorn processing to new generations, while Ron Good of the North Fork Mono leads cultural burns in partnership with the Forest Service. Bernice Lego brings families together for acorn harvest workshops, ensuring that ancient techniques stay alive. Frank Lake, a Karuk fire ecologist, bridges tribal knowledge with agency science. In 2018, California officially recognized indigenous rights to cultural burning on state lands, clearing the way for more prescribed fires and oak woodland renewal. Small businesses now offer acorn flour for the first time in generations, and annual tribal festivals draw crowds to celebrate the harvest. These efforts are not just symbolic, they are reweaving the living fabric of food, language, and land. Modern science is catching up to what indigenous knowledge has always shown. UC Berkeley researchers have confirmed that acorn flour is not just filling, but nutritionally complete, with anti-inflammatory tannins and resistant starch that support gut health. In the fight against climate change, mature oak forests store up to 60 tons of carbon dioxide per acre, far more than annual crop fields, which release carbon every time they are plowed. Fire ecology studies now show that traditional cultural burns help young oaks thrive, while fire suppression chokes out new growth. Planting a single oak sapling today can set in motion centuries of food security and carbon capture. Every community that restores oaks is building a future where both people and land can weather drought, heat, and hunger, one tree at a time. Today, as drought and food insecurity intensify, millions of calories still fall unharvested beneath surviving oaks, proof that abundance never needed permission. The question now isn't whether revival is possible, but whether we value food systems that resist commodification. The memory of these forests asks, what would true food freedom look like?